It should go fast. All right, you ready? Okay. Like to call this meeting to order, a regular meeting of the Village Board on Monday, June 20th at 7 PM in the Germantown Village Hall Boardroom, and also can be accessed via WebEx. This meeting has been given public notice in accordance with sections 19.83 and 19.84 of the Wisconsin statutes in such form that will apprise the general public and news media of subject matter that is intended for consideration and action. Roll call shows all village board members present. At this time, I'll ask us to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God. Justice for all. Thank you. Next item is President's Report. Just a couple things to report tonight. We have been graced with a favor of sorts tomorrow morning at 6:45 a.m. in the morning, and I realize some of you may not be up, but others might be. We are going to participate, specifically me, in a online or live interview on Channel 58 as being part of their 58 Hometowns presentation. So we've been chosen for this week, which is great. They've asked if I would like to do an interview, and I said yes, that would be fine. But I'm mostly excited about the prospect of highlighting our community and telling them that the nice areas that we have, the great residents we have, and what a great place this is to live. That's what I'm excited about. They will also be at the Splash Pad at about 9 or 9:30. There are going to be two more segments that are going to be live feeds. One will be at the Splash Pad in Kinderberg Park. So if you want to get your kids on TV, there's an opportunity there. And then they'll also be going to the Big Boy on Main Street and the Beer Garden for a live feed at 4 o'clock. So if you finish your day early and you'd like to be in the background of a news feed, then please go to the Beer Garden and help fill that up so that it looks like it's a great place to be. So that is a great benefit for us, and I appreciate that opportunity. And if you have a chance and aren't able to go to any of those places, please watch and let us know how we did. The next item that I have for tonight is we have another opportunity with us. We have a candidate for the Washington County Clerk of Circuit Courts with us in our audience, and she would like to come forward and introduce herself and kind of let everybody know who she is, what she's running for, and why she should be considered a strong candidate for that position. So Connie Hogendijk is with us, and at this time, I'd like her to come to the microphone and introduce herself. Connie.
Well, thank you, Dean. I appreciate you allowing me to be here tonight. So again, my name is Connie Hogendijk. I'm running for Clerk of Court in Washington County. The reason why I decided to run is that I believe that the Clerk of Court serves an important function in county government. We are responsible for managing the day-to-day activities and management of the court system. My experience personally, I have had 14 years experience in the court system. 7 years right here in Washington County at the District Attorney's Office with Victim Witness Services. And then the last 4 years, I have been specifically working as the Chief Deputy Clerk in Walworth County. So I commute there and work directly below the elected official, which is essentially her succession plan in her county. So as a resident of Washington County, it was just a no-brainer for me to want to run in the county that I live in. I don't intend to move out of this county and have always resided here. So it would be my greatest honor to serve as your Clerk of Court. Thank you.
Thank you for coming forward and introducing yourself to us. That's all I have for President's Report. So we can go on to the next item, which is announcements of forthcoming events of public interest, committee, and department reports. Excuse me. And we'll start with committee reports and committee chairs with Trustee Kaminsky.
Public Works will meet in this room on Wednesday, July 6th at 6 PM.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Rick Miller.
Public Works, General Government and Finance, met just prior to this meeting, and we'll meet next on Monday, July 18th at 6 PM.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Myers.
Mr. President, Public Safety Committee members, please note, July 18th will be our next meeting, but it'll be at 5 PM, please.
Okay, here in the boardroom.
Sir.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone else have anything else they'd like to bring forward for announcements of forthcoming events of public interest, committee or department reports? Trustee Jan Miller.
I'd like to announce that we'll have our next and final meeting for the 4th of July committee on June 29th, and the location will to be determined. It'll either be at a park or here in the boardroom. Thank you.
Okay, and there are still some opportunities for volunteers to sign up. If they go to our website, they can find a link that they can find a sign up kiosk for different areas of opportunity for volunteer, whether it be helping to pass out drinks or helping to tend the grounds, or just kind of being a monitor of a parking lot, whatever you feel. If you'd like to volunteer, please do so. This is the first event that we've done as a village and as part of this committee. So we really would like it to succeed. And we were told from the residents that this is an event that they would like to continue. And with that continuance, we will always need volunteers. So even if you can give a couple hours, you don't have to give the whole day, which is different slots are available. So whatever works for your schedule, we would greatly appreciate. That takes care of all announcements of forthcoming events of public interest, unless somebody has something else. All right, then we can go to citizen input and public appearance on items. I'm sorry, you're right. What I'd like to call forward, thank you for reminding me, is the chief of the fire department would like to come forward and make a little bit of a statement and a presentation, if he could, please. So, Chief Delane, could you come forward? We ask that you silence your phones during the village board meeting.
I did. It just started playing music by itself. As many of you are aware, I like to talk a lot about how busy our fire department is and how good of a job our fire department does. Over the course of the last year or so, we've had a number of very significant incidences that our crews have responded to and have had very, very good outcomes for residents of the village, non-residents for the village, basically anybody we serve. Some of those people that are on those calls are supposed to be here tonight, but cannot because they're on an incident right now that we have on Rockfield and Division Road. Hopefully they will be able to trickle in as they clear that call. But basically what we would like to do tonight is just recognize some of the service that these people do with the Chief's commendation. And with that being said, I'd like to turn it over to Battalion Chief Robert Asmundy, who is going to go through some of these instances. Battalion Chief Asmundy is our chief in charge of EMS, or our ambulance service. So he has a great opportunity to review all these calls and see some of the intricate details of what we do, and is able to pull out some of these calls that really stand out as going above and beyond with really great outcomes.
Thank you, Chief. Again, Battalion Chief Robert Asmundy with the Germantown Fire Department. We have 3 separate incidents that happened last year, all within a couple months of each other. The first one, the paramedic that was on scene, one of them has since left, and the other one is currently on the call on Rockfield Road. I'm going to give a brief synopsis of what happened with the incidents, how they went above and beyond to treat appropriately and ultimately save a life. All 3 of these are life-saving events. The members will be getting life-saving awards tonight. So, first incident was on August 10th. The Germantown Paramedic Unit 1751 responded for a patient who was having chest pain. After talking with the patient, they had stated that the individual had a heart attack about 20 years ago and ended up coding at the hospital. Coding means they, when P&B, they had to start doing chest compression CPR. The patient was treated on scene by our paramedics following chest pain protocol. They obtained a 12 lead on scene and a second one while en route to the hospital. Upon arrival at the hospital, thankfully, they got there quick enough. The quick actions made by paramedic Diamantopoulos noticed that the patient was in ventricular fibrillation, meaning that essentially heart is sitting there quivering, it's not pumping, it's not beating the way it should be. He immediately applied the defib pads on there, ultimately shocked the patient once. Patient, within a few seconds, started talking with the crews again. This was, if he would have shocked the individual and they wouldn't have converted out of this, they would have been doing CPR right inside the ambulance bay. So the first one goes to Alex Diamantopoulos. Again, he is not here at the moment, but if he's not able to get here tonight, we'll be sure to give him the award and the pin that goes with it. So that was the first one. I'll give that to Chief for now. The second one is rather unique. It was a mutual aid call that we had with Richfield Fire Department. It was on October 17th, 2021. Germantown Paramedic Unit 1751 was monitoring Washington County dispatch for a patient that was stung by a bee. The police department was initially requested by Washington County to respond for a person who wasn't breathing. At this time, Richfield had multiple calls going on. Multiple units were on the far northern side of their village that they were protecting. It was at that time that the on-duty battalion chief made the designation that we're going to start sending our units there. Our police department got on scene and stated that they were starting to do CPR. And at that time, our paramedic unit ended up upgrading, going lights and sirens to the scene. They verified that the patient did not have a pulse. They put the patient on a Lucas device. Anybody who's not familiar with Lucas device is it's an automatic compression device. So it frees up our paramedics' hands to start doing airway interventions, start giving medications, oxygen, breathing for the patient. So it's really significant that we have these to give us extra hands throughout this whole process. After Richfield arrived on scene, they helped our firefighter, EMT, and firefighter paramedic there. And ultimately, by the time they got the patient to the hospital, they were breathing on their own. So for this award, Darren Diamond, again, this is another individual that is on the scene at Rockfield Road right now. He will be receiving another life-saving award, and he'll get the fire chief commendation pin. All these, they'll get a fire chief commendation pin to wear on their uniforms, and then also a life-saving award. And the second one is for Craig Rossman. Craig, can you kind of come on up here?
I consider myself very lucky to be on it. Seen this, so I'm sure we've had. Especially the fact that we jumped the gun.
The last one occurred on November 24th of 2021. The Germantown Paramedic Unit 1751 was dispatched for a patient who was unresponsive. Upon arrival, the patient was alert and talking with the crew, which is a good thing. This is what we want. However, unfortunately, it started to take a turn for the worse. The patient stated that they recently had a heart surgery and they were not feeling well throughout the day, prompting them to call the ambulance. They brought the patient inside of the ambulance and quickly noticed that the patient went unresponsive. Patient was not breathing and the individual had no pulse. At that time, the crews immediately recognized this and started doing CPR compressions, ultimately put him on the Lucas device and got him to the hospital with minor interventions. And I think it was 3.5 weeks ago, the individual actually came into the firehouse, which is rather remarkable to thank our units for it. So for this, the two individuals on this award is, the first one is Susie Weisflow. second one goes to Riker Holmes, firefighter paramedic. I'm not going to bore you too much longer. I am a talker. I could go on for the rest of the night. However, I'm going to make this short and sweet. According to the American Heart Association, the likelihood that this is going to happen is about 12% of the time. So this is rather significant that these members were able to accomplish this. Again, with our technology that we have, the Lucas device, it frees up our hands for the individuals, making the transition to a paramedic unit. They're able to administer truly life-saving medications, which on all these calls, they were able to do either a life-saving intervention or give some sort of life-saving medicine for that. With that, I would like to personally invite you, all the board members, the public, to come to the fire department and see our members in action. It is truly amazing what the members on our department do. And if you're on my shift that night, I promise I will cook you a fantastic meal, if that'll get you to come. But this is the need. I mean, we have the need right now for funding because everyone's short, and we want to keep these stories coming. We want to be able to have these awards, multiple awards throughout the year. And by increased staffing, having our ambulances there 24/7, it's a huge help. So again, I thank you for your time, and could we give the individuals one more round of applause?
I appreciate you coming forward and presenting those awards at our village board meeting. For those on the board who have been here a while, they can remember back not too far when we were just dealing with EMS and EMT, and there was a lot of discussions and budget discussions in regards to turning our fire department not only to full-time, but also to a paramedic type service. And what this presentation shows tonight is the decision to go to the paramedic service was the right decision for our residents. And it shows the lives that we saved because of it, and an appreciation for those that are out there doing it every day. Again, thank you. And whatever we can do to support you going forward, this board is always considering and looking for that opportunity. So thank you for your service. All right, next item on the agenda is citizen input and public appearance on items not subject to a public hearing. There are no public hearings on tonight's agenda. But if anyone would like to come forward at this time for citizen input and public appearance, I would like you to please come to the podium in the middle of the room and state your name and your address for the record. Sir. Yeah. Could you do me a favor before, can you tap on that microphone, just make sure? Yeah, we're going to turn it on. That way everybody at home can hear you too. There.
Hello?
Yep.
Okay. I've never done this before, so I'll do my best here to make it short. So I'm here today to express my concerns for the renewal of the Das Barrel Room Entertainment and Liquor License. I lived across and up the street from the Das Barrel Room located on Appleton Avenue for about 5 years now. Since the new leaser has taken over, he's had live bands for the past 2 years. Myself and my neighbors have had to endure the repeated disregard for the noise level, the ordinance, and allowing us to reside peacefully. There have been many occasions when the live bands are playing that I and my neighbors have to call the police due to the excessive music levels and playing past allowed times, which is between the hours of sunset and 6 a.m., according to the village ordinance. It also states that no person shall make or cause to be made any loud or disturbing or unnecessary noise, which may annoy or disturb a person of ordinary sensibilities in or about any public street, alley, or park, or any private residence or business. Excessive noise shall include, but not limited to, loud playing of phonographs, tape, players, radio, television sets, or other music, or musical instruments which generate unnecessary or excessive noise. Last year it was usually only on Saturday nights. Now this year it's Thursday, Friday, and Saturday nights. The band plays too loud. That can be heard from blocks away in my house with all the doors and windows closed. We've been repeatedly asked to keep the noise levels down and to be done by the allotted times. He also repeatedly ignored the requests given by police, and after receiving numerous verbal warnings has been issued tickets, resulting in fines. He told one officer that it is what it is, and after that, he was instructed to turn down the volume, which he did not, which later resulted in him getting a noise ticket and a fine. While profit's not a dirty word, and I have no problem with him making a living, it should not interfere with my right to peaceful residence. I would have thought he would have done this voluntarily, as being a good neighbor, without me taking up any of your time, but his total dismissal of what the ordinance says and what the police have told him on many occasions only further enforces his lack of respect for the board, the valuable time spent by the police, and us as surrounding neighbors. So my hope by speaking to the board today is to resolve this long-going issue that seems to be falling on his deaf ears. I also ask that you please take this into consideration when deciding to approve his license. I did attempt to get incident report when the police came out last week, and I went today to get it, and I was unaware that it could take up to 7 to 10 days. I didn't know until I came tonight to try to get it. So this is not like an isolated incident where I'm just a lousy neighbor and don't want the guy to make a living. That's not it. So that pretty much just sums it up. I don't know what to do next after this. As the police have instructed me, this is my next option.
Okay, and with you living up the street, how many times per year have you think it's occurred within the last year?
In 2022.
Mm-hmm.
We recently started having the bands, but it's weekly. That we have to call and it's excessive. They said I was told that there's a decibel reading and nobody can know every ordinance and every statute of it. But it says that he can't, within residential area, and to be more or less respectful of those around and be reasonable. And it's every week.
Is it when the band is inside and the doors are open, or is it when they have music on the outside on the deck area?
He built the deck outside.
Right.
And it's outside. It goes all night. And it goes past, in the ordinance, it says past sunset, which is like at 8:30. But the ordinance is a little gray in some areas, says up to 10 o'clock. But it depends how you're zoned, and I educated myself on it quite a bit to make sure I wasn't out of order.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a lack of consideration for the neighbors. I'm newer to Germantown. I lived in Glendale for a while. My parents been out here about 40 years, and everybody was neighborly and tried to speak to him about it. And he has no regard for anybody other than himself. He's making a profit. And now it's 3 nights a week. So I get up at 4:30 in the morning and I got a call after 10 o'clock and say, hey man, I got to call the police because he just will not abide by the ordinance.
We had a neighborhood establishment that was similar in fashion. And what it ended up doing was that there were some limits put on not only the type of music, but how long it could go. And at that time, I think it was 9 we would allow it up to.
Yeah, it's 10.
I thought it was changed to 10, but it started at 9. Okay. Okay. But I think that originally we were looking at 9, and then it had to be completely shut down by 10 o'clock, meaning that whole back area had to be cleared out at one moment for a while. There couldn't be anybody back there after 10 o'clock, and that's changed because of that agreement. So would you agree to something that's similar in nature, where by 9 o'clock they have to turn the music down and then completely off by 10?
I don't want to inhibit this guy to make a living.
Mm-hmm.
That's not what I'm here about. If you keep the noise down and be done on time and be neighborly, I don't want to waste anybody else's time.
Okay.
But it doesn't seem to do that. And the police have other things to do. I mean, sure there's things to do instead of coming out there telling the same thing he already knows. So I went through and looked at all the statutes and everything else, and there's some contradictory things. But according to the way he's zoned, anything other than M1 or M2, M3, there's a decibel reading, and anything other than that.
Yeah,
has to abide by
manufacturing,
dispatch.
within the manufacturing zone, correct?
Yeah, so he's constantly exceeding it. So, yeah, I would agree to some kind of concession where he would be considerate of everybody around him. And it's not just me, there's neighbors all around there that are having to put up with it, blocks
this-
away.
Is this when the bands are playing outside or inside?
Yeah, it's obviously way worse outside. And when if it's inclement and he has a band who have the front door open, and it's the constant drone of the bass, and you know, I'm self-employed. I get up and go to work early every morning, and I work all day, and I work every day.
That's going to be hard to tell an establishment to not have, to shut off their band by 10 o'clock.
No,
I mean,
it's been
Bubs
done
plays till
before.
midnight.
You could limit the extension.
Inside.
We've done it before, especially when there's a neighborhood surrounding or nearby. And it mostly comes from complaints from the residents and the number of complaints within the year. So that's one of the reasons why some of it's conditional use. That's another reason why we look at these licenses at the time that we do every year, and the possibility of granting not only the liquor license, but the extension of that liquor license to the outside premise. And that's what we have before us tonight. In our consent agenda, we have the full list of liquor licenses and extensions for the outside. And within that can be limited, but in most cases, it should be brought forward before public safety so that the person is aware of the complaints or the list of complaints and what can be worked out with that business owner at that time, or what they're more than willing to do, knowing that they have constant complaints. And if whatever they do to help limit that doesn't fix it, then they look at public safety limiting their use of their outside extension. And it's been done before, so it's not without precedent. But we're hoping at first to alert the business owner to that fact. And then after that they will do something as part of consideration of, as a gentleman stated, to being a good neighbor. Trustee Pieper.
For the record, this did come before a Public Safety Committee meeting, and we did ask the police chief, was there anything, any issues or anything with any of these businesses renewing their licenses? And he said none.
Okay, so that was discussed in the public safety meeting before this?
Not the one before this. This was 2 weeks ago.
Okay. All right, well, we have this
unable to get-
gentleman coming before us as part of that record. So if it continues and continued complaints come forward, it can be brought again before public safety, knowing that there's a continued complaint, much like we dealt with on the beer stoop.
Main Street.
And until we had everybody sit down and come to an agreement, it was ongoing, and it did, I'm not going to say wasted the police time that they were called in, but it did build a record to help come to some sort of conclusion and some sort of decision amongst all that were involved. So we can go step by step the same way with this person as well. But I do appreciate you coming forward and bringing it to our attention.
Thank you
And
for-
we'll do what we can with the business owner and see what we can do to help remedy this going forward.
I appreciate you letting me be heard.
Thank you.
Parting comment. Mr.
Trustee
Jager,
Blum?
Okay.
call the police department every time. Unless we get the reports of ongoing, if we get nothing from the police department, there's not much we
And
can.
they may not send an officer every time, but it does build the record.
I
Yes.
do call, when I was here last year, I spoke to the lieutenant on duty. He called down there, spoke to he's not the owner, he leases the building. And expressed a concern, and right away the next week, total disregard again.
Yeah.
So it's not a special occasion where you have to get a permit for a fair or festival. This is not what this is.
Yeah, but keep calling. You may
Yeah.
not want to bother the police department, but you got to keep making the phone
Well,
calls.
there's quite a few incidents. I'm not the only one calling, and he's got multiple
Yeah.
tickets behind it, but I wasn't able to get it
Okay.
today. And I
That's
just-
fine,
He has
but keep
been.
calling.
Yes, he's been fined. Trustee Myers?
What's the name of the establishment? Is that the one that's on Appleton Avenue across from the
Yes.
gas station?
Das Barrel House, yes.
I would have to say.
Barrel Room, yeah.
Mr. President and the committee, I have a lot of reports in regard to the same situation and such, so thank you for bringing it to the attention again for yourself.
Safety.
Okay.
Is it appropriate to ask a question now, or?
No, you can ask a question.
So you've reported him several times. He's got several tickets, is what I'm hearing, several citations. And Chief Snow didn't know this and didn't report this to you.
When we asked if there were any issues for any of the establishments renewing their licenses, he said, no,
Issues might
no
be-
concerns.
Maybe he's thinking felonies or
He said,
something.
no, no concerns, no
Yeah.
issues.
Can we, I mean, part of what we can do is send this back to you and ask that guy to appear and explain what the heck's going on
I
and
would like
talk
to
to him
do
about
that.
limitations.
I would like to do that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, when would you be able to bring him back? Because he'd come before public safety, and your next public safety meeting isn't until July 18th. His liquor license
So I'm gonna-
runs out on June 30th. I'm going to
be the bad guy and say that we're public comment. This prolonged discussion is not really the time to be doing
Okay.
this.
You are a bad guy.
Duly noted.
He's the mean one.
Thank you, village attorney. All right, well, thank you for coming forward and know that your comments are heard. You're welcome.
President,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to go back to item number 5. I think the
Please.
rest of our fire department has shown up.
Yes,
Make a motion to do
Chief?
that.
is Chief Delane with us? Yes, good. The personnel that were out on the call they have returned, so we'd like to recognize and make sure that they're showing appreciation for service done.
Thank you for giving us time again. I don't go away that easy, so. All right, the first individual we're gonna bring up is paramedic Diamantopoulos. He was the one that recognized the individual in ventricular fibrillation, ended up shocking the person there, ultimately saving a life. So we can give Alex Diamantopoulos a round of applause. And then the second individual is Darren Diamond. He was Craig Rossman's partner at the time that they responded to the individual who was stung by a bee. Ultimately, they performed the life-saving measures, and the individual prior to the hospital was breathing on their own. So Darren Diamond. Thank you again. Again, this is truly an amazing accomplishment that all these individuals tonight have had. So it's great to have these stories.
Thank you. Okay, back to agenda item 6, which is citizen input and public appearance on items not subject to a public hearing. Is there anyone else within our audience or joining us via WebEx that would like to participate in citizen input or public appearance at this time? Good evening. I'm sure they appreciated that very much.
It's difficult to do something that should be left to residents. Why I'm saying all of this is that want to spend, or departments want to spend, to be able to budget. So if discussion about the overall.
Or
Yes. So, so my, another question. Full copy of today. Still not a big copy. Thing I'm gonna say is, beyond its current. Originally intended to go to the library. Website updates and the internal assistance. So that's for my. It's earmarked. This meeting.
That was unforeseen expense though, because we didn't know that was coming at the time that the first discussion occurred with the ARPA funds. And until that referendum was approved by the village board, we had to look for a place where that funding could come. And the ARPA funds is a kind of a natural course for it because it does pertain to a benefit of the village. But the referendum at the point of when the first discussions occurred for ARPA, that was an unknown because it didn't come forward until this board decided that that's how they wanted to handle that, that water and sewer utility to Richfield.
one point eight. 1.8.
Don't be spent.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. All right, thank you for coming forward. Is there anyone else that wishes to come forward at this time for citizen input or public appearance? Anyone online? If not, we can then go to the next item, which is consent agenda.
Motion to approve Roman numeral 7 in entirety.
Motion made, do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion made to approve consent agenda items A through H and all the sub-listings that are underneath each of those. Is there any discussion on that motion? Trustee Kaminsky,
I'd like to pull C9.
okay? Other discussion? No other discussion? Trustee Jan Miller?
But I noticed it's also in. Is that the same thing?
Unfinished business.
No.
No.
License ones
The
that
one
are
talk to a
expanded.
license.
Right, the other one's an extension approval.
License includes it says the rear of the restaurant.
Based on the board's approval, not until unfinished business is, what the determination of unfinished business item A is.
Well, no, I think you probably would be correct in pulling it to discuss them together. One is the renewal of the current license, which item 8A, unfinished business A, amends the current license. The item in E1 is just the renewal of the existing license. And so I think you probably want to have that discussion together.
Okay. Further discussion? No further discussion? We'll do roll call vote minus the items that have been pulled.
Trustee Myers, Trustee Baum,
Aye.
Trustee Hudson,
Aye.
Trustee Kaminsky, Trustee Rick Miller,
Aye.
Trustee Jan Miller,
Aye.
Trustee Nightrider,
Aye.
Trustee Peeper,
Aye.
President Walter.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, then we go to consent agenda item C9. Trustee Kaminsky.
Yes, I would like to make a motion that we send this back to
Safety.
our Public Safety Committee and have both the chief let us know how many citations have happened there, and also to have, ask this gentleman to appear before he gets his license renewed. I know it's a bit of a problem for having to have a special meeting, but I think it's necessary. We have these many complaints. So my motion is to send it back prior to the expiration of this license, that you would have a meeting and talk to him.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Village Attorney.
So the expiration of the license is in a little over a week at this point. There are a couple points of consideration. Number one, whether or not public safety is even going to be able to schedule a meeting to meet. Likewise, this body then subsequently would need to meet to approve that, and you're looking to do that in a week. I have concerns about that. In addition, you have statutory requirements, although not so much statutory, but case law requirements that talk about if we're going to potentially not renew a license, which is what we're talking about here, that there is property rights that are associated with that, and we would need to do a due process hearing if we were going to do that. By statute, there are timeframes that are spelled out with that as well. I don't know that we can get that done, all of those steps done before the license is renewed. An option would be that you could renew the license and then seek to potentially revoke the license after the fact based on that.
No, that makes sense. In fact, I will change my motion to reflect, have him appear then at the next meeting of Public Safety Committee and ask him to appear, and essentially that his license is going to be renewed, but it could be taken away. Is that okay?
Taken away or
Taken away, but-
revised in regards to
I mean, if he doesn't show up,
extension or?
we need a stick.
Well, I think that the courts would view non-renewal completely reducing some of the things that he may otherwise have the right to now. That's really the same thing. You're taking away some of his property rights, so they would probably consider that to be the same. So you'd start, I think, at public safety to have the discussion with him. He may, as most owners do, come in, establish, here's the game plan moving forward, and then we react if he fails to follow
So
the
that's
game
okay.
plan.
The
So-
motion's okay the way it is. Okay.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Discussion on that motion.
We had it.
Are you still seconding okay with the seconder? Okay, thank you.
No discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None opposed? Motion carries. The other item we're going to be taking up under unfinished business, which is next. Unfinished business, item A, Brahma's Pizza extension of premise, June 30.
Point of order did we just approve his license or did we just approve that he has to appear at public safety?
Which is licensed.
Approved his license.
Uh,
No, we only approved that he has to appear at public
I
safety.
need a
That was
motion
my
to approve his license. Thank you, trustee Miller.
Make a motion to approve item C9.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion. No discussion. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Not opposed. Motion carries.
Catch.
Next item is unfinished business. Item A, Brahma's Pizza extension of premise, June 30th, 2022. Brahma's Pizzeria LLC, Kerry Wegner at North 116, West 12831, Elm Lane. In regards to Brahma's Pizzeria, which is located at North 112, West 16700, Mequon Road. Coolers and bar area located on the west wall, rear of restaurant and locked storage room. Office parking lot area in front of restaurant.
Motion to approve new business or unfinished business, item A.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion.
Yeah, based on the letter we received from the condo association, there is no issue with this, and that's why we pulled it or postponed it from this last meeting.
Does your motion include the renewal under,
Can we do them
Consent.
together? I mean,
Oh, was it separated? Yes, my motion would include to,
To approve the license?
yes.
And that is all right with the second?
Extension.
that's good.
Okay. Trustee Miller, anything further?
No.
All right. Trustee Hudson?
So I'm confused. I apologize. So is Frederick Gerlach, is he a member of the condo association or is he the president? So is he speaking? So how do you know that? Because it doesn't
Because
say
Rick
that.
knows him. Because Rick knows
Which
him.
one's your relative?
But he's listed on the condo association as
I
that.
just want to make sure he's not just one out of the five, that he can authoritatively speak for that association.
Yeah, Fritz can absolutely.
I assume that he does because he's using their letterhead and he's listed as the agent with the state. So between those two things, I would assume so.
Okay.
Further discussion? No further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Not opposed? Motion carries. Next item is there are no public hearings tonight, so we'll go to new business. And we start with new business item A, the 2023 budget preview presentation. And for that presentation tonight, we have the budget director here, Matthew Uselli. Matthew.
Thank you very much. Before you, talking with the administrator, we wanted to get ahead and in front of the board, talking about the 2023 budget, kind of where we're starting off from 2022, and looking for some strategic direction from the board. Do it this way. So as we start here, I'd like to go over some 2022 budget accomplishments. One of the major accomplishments that I think we all can be proud of is we had a zero tax levy increase with a slight decrease in the mill rate. We were able to provide, on average, a 2.5% pay adjustment for staff. An additional police officer was hired, as well as an additional mechanic was in the 2022 budget. In addition, we were also able to make headway on our financial and IT systems that are slightly outdated. With that said, there will be some challenges with the 2023 budget. As it'll be no surprise to anybody, inflation is going to increase our cost for the 2023 budget over the 2022 budget. Those positions, the police and mechanic, were not fully funded within the 2022 budget and will have to be within the 2023 budget. To stay competitive in the market, we're looking to increase salaries and benefits for all staff that attract and retain staff. In addition, you heard earlier from Chief Delane, regarding the public safety service levels and the number of calls that both the police and fire department have been getting year over year, and looking for ways to address those concerns. With that, there are also some budget opportunities in 2023. The village continues to see strong growth in commercial and residential areas. And fiscally, the village continues to enjoy a strong financial position with healthy reserves within the fund balance. So before you, I have a quick 30,000-foot 2023 budget outlook. These are not quite back of the envelope numbers, but they're not back of the envelope numbers. So don't read too much into those. Looking at the first column, that would be the estimated revenues if we included the full tax levy, including the TID amounts. The second column is the total revenues without the TID. On the left-hand column, you'll see TID in, an estimated levy of an additional $200,000. TID out would be $157,000 in additional revenue. Some expense adjustments that I made where a pay adjustment on average of 3% for employees would be about $293,000. With the price of gas and oil right now, an increase of $100,000 across all departments. And then looking to fund that police officer and mechanic, estimated about $150,000. That was not included in the 2022 budget. All other expenses and revenues were held constant, minus some minor tweaks that I made in anticipation for this meeting tonight. So the areas of feedback we're looking for from the board is what are the acceptable levy changes / targets we should be looking for the 2023 budget, knowing that there will be some challenges, what programs, services should we prioritize, and what are the budget goals for the 2023 budget. And with that, I'll take any questions.
I was waiting for the dog picture. Questions? Trustee Jan Miller.
I've only made it through one cow session, so my question is, when you say TID in and TID out, which TID is it, all or one?
All. TID in, it's not quite broken down by TID. The numbers you get from the Department of Revenue from the state include the net new construction. You could find a way to back it out for what each TID value is for the total net new construction. But when I say TID in, I'm referring to all TIDs. When I say TID out, I'm referring to all TIDs.
Okay.
If I could just, and maybe expand on that a little bit, and maybe for some of the folks who might be listening and might not be familiar with all of the terms that we're using. So for the village budget, the state law limits any increases in the property tax levy, the amount that we collect in total from all property owners within Germantown, to the amount that is paid by any net new construction. So the only additional property tax levy that's received by the village comes from new buildings that are being put up. So in some of the past conversations with the village board, and that number includes tax increment districts. So, tax and all the 3 active tax increment districts that are currently where you see construction going on. So last year when we came for this preliminary conversation with the board gave us a direction to prepare a budget that allowed for the growth in net new construction, except for the growth in tax increment districts. And that was what we presented. Ultimately, as we went through, the board made the decision to go further than that and not have any increase in the property tax levy. So that's where when the budget manager is presenting it with TID in and TID out, the TID includes the property tax levy that would be generated by all of the new building. When it says tax increment district out, TID out, that removes TIDs 6, 7, and 8, the new construction that's taking place there. One other thing, if I could just point out on that chart, we do have a significant gap in either case.
Oh, yes.
If you look at the bottom line of revenues less expenses, And it's not entirely unusual. I don't want to ring, too many alarm bells, but, at this point in the process, and this is not like a wish list, the only new expenses we've included in are the pay adjustments, the bulk of which is determined by labor contracts, budgeting some extra money for gas, for police vehicles, fire vehicles, public works vehicles, and then fully funding the 2 positions that were added last year. And that leaves us, around $500,000 short as we work to put the budget together.
And I'd just like to emphasize that's not unusual. We were in a similar spot last year at the same time.
Trustee Kaminsky.
What, do we have any open positions right now any positions that we haven't filled, and are they critical? Say they're critical.
Yeah, there are a handful of positions that are open. Right now, I know there are positions in the police department and in the fire department, which obviously, public safety related. There is a position, the deputy clerk treasurer position is one in a village hall. I believe there's some part-time positions open in the library.
So not much, really, because we're not going to touch public safety.
Well, engineering, we have, yes, we have some long-term vacancies there.
So we've saved a little money there up to this point. Not having- Okay. Yeah,
Yes,
but
we
it is
have been
budget.
budgeting.
Contracted, yeah.
Yeah. Well, it gives us something to think about and work on.
Other questions? So when you're showing the addition of the police officer and the mechanic, that's not asking for an additional, it's funding the one that was approved last year.
Correct. If you recall, the original budget had half the position of the mechanic. Then once we got to the committee of the whole meetings, the board decided to add an additional officer.
Are you looking for a schedule from us tonight? Or you're going to present a schedule of committee of the whole meetings?
I think the couple of areas where when Matthew and I were talking about the presentation is one, it's helpful to us to kind of know what the target is as we're preparing the budget. And like I said last year, you gave us direction at this point to prepare a budget that used the additional levy from net new construction, except for the TID portion, and that you're not committed to that. You changed your mind last year. You can, whatever direction you give us this year, you can change your mind again. But I think having that direction gives us a target of what you want us to submit to you in September. So do you want the levy to be frozen again? Do you want it to allow it to increase by TID in or TID out? And I guess I'd maybe pause at that one.
Trustee Kaminsky.
I think I would go with net new construction personally. I would love to see us hold the line and not raise anything. Like, that's who we are. We're very conservative. But the reality of inflation and potential recession is going to probably erase that ability this year. So at least as a starting point, I would do net new construction.
Including TID?
No, TID out.
Oh, okay. So it's just net new construction without TID. That I would agree with. You can always show the number of what it would be including, so that we have that as a decision.
I think
And
as a
as we're
starting-
looking at positions, but I think your starting point should be as it was last year, without TID. Trustee Rick Miller.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that as well. Steve, there's something about the law though that, if we do the tax levy, I think you have recommended in the past, do the max, because if you don't, you lose it. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yes, and there are some exceptions and some ability to go back for limited periods of time and recover some of the amount. I would say, and I prepare budgets at the direction of the board and your priorities and all that, but I also, part of my job is to explain the math behind it all too. And, you know, our levy is, the concern about the way that the tax levy restrictions are in place that people like me have always raised at the state level is that it's doable in situations where there's not very much inflation. And since these levy limits have been in place, there's been very low inflation, if any inflation at all. If we are in a period where inflation is 7, 8, 6, 7, 8%, like we're seeing now, and if that's an extended period of time, like it has been within my lifetime anyways, that's going to become much less manageable if the costs are going up by 6, 7, 8, 9%, and the levy is going up by 2 or 3%. That gap grows pretty quickly. And if in any given year, the board doesn't utilize the full amount of available for levy increases, then that makes it, if there's 3% available and you only use 2, it makes that gap a little bit more challenging.
Trustee Jan Miller?
So do you know for sure what is it a formula, the tax levy, the maximum tax levy?
Yeah.
We won't know until, we don't get net new construction until August, early August. And then depending on how much of that net new construction we use, we can figure out what the max levy could be.
These numbers are estimates based on some data that we got from our assessor.
So would you estimate 2 to 3%?
That's about what
Yeah, last year TID out was low 2s, TID in was 2.5, 2.6%. I'd estimate around there again this year.
Okay, thanks.
Which subdivisions are allowed to be put on this year?
Anything that was built during 2021 will be taxable for at the end of this
Do
year.
we know how much of what's been built off of Country Meadows that might be? Because there was pretty extensive building in residential there, which would be off TIF.
We did see, looking at the numbers from the assessor, there was a lot of, there was actually, comparing this year to last year, there was more net new construction on the residential side and a little bit less that was showing up on the commercial industrial side. So we did see that in the preliminary numbers, and I think there's a little bit of an offset there.
Okay. Trustee Myers, what?
I was going to say, I thought it was close to 40 homes.
Yeah, and I don't have the numbers up on my screen in front of me right now, but it was, I don't know, I want 20 million in new residential.
Might have been a little more than that, but yeah.
Well, knowing that we're in an inflationary time and the rate at which costs are going up, more specifically gasoline and fuel costs, I think this board is going to have to look at projects and at capital projects closely and at equipment and equipment expenditures closely this year. And if we're going to continue to try to add staff in the police or fire department, those are the only other places that it can be looked at as possibly switching funding to support staff over projects and or equipment. So it's up to us to ask the right questions of need versus want and choose things that may not be required in this year's budget as part of capital. And I'm not saying capital borrowing, I'm saying the capital funding of different projects that are within our budget and the type of equipment that we're purchasing within our budget, not borrowing for. And in the past, we've looked at removing the percentage of increase from TIF because it was one of the negatives that were brought forward of why and how TIF impacts the levy and adds to your taxes. So we looked at it last year and chose to remove it. And then at the end, we chose to not increase it at all. And that was the major change that Administrator Krecklow referenced earlier. It's not that we went back and included TIF. We just chose to not put any increase within the levy and to add some staff members. So I think this body will have to very closely look at and really go through line by line each of those expenditures and, start at the ground floor of zero and build it up from there. Because right now, it seems that our goals are protecting employees, looking at ways to keep employees here, and at the same time adding positions to public safety, which is always first and foremost in residents' minds of what they pay their property taxes for, is that protection. Other questions? No other questions? Be fun.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for the presentation. Next item under new business is item B, CLA contract.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion.
Yeah, this came through General Government and Finance tonight. I'll let Steve or Administrator Krecklow explain a little bit more. And it was voted unanimously.
Yeah, thank you. So as we've been adjusting from the retirement of basically actually was all of the staff from the finance department at the end of 2020 and trying to get go through the year-end closing process, we did bring on a temporary accountant from Clifton Larson Allen, CLA, an individual who's retired from another municipality where he was doing similar type of accounting work. And GGF had earlier this year approved a contract of up to $15,000 for those services. The individual who's been here has been very helpful in helping us to kind of reconcile some of the issues that we've been seeing and the data that comes out of the financial system, and figure out what entries need to be made to correct that. We're requesting an increase in that contract from $15,000 to $25,000. That would allow some extra hours for this person to finish up some of the adjusting entries from 2021 to basically come up with a new trial balance sheet that we can use with our external auditors for the year-end close. And then make those adjusting entries basically to year to date and help us catch up. From that point forward, what we've talked about is working with him to help basically train some of the staff on how to make those entries, what they look like. So he may kind of help identify what needs to be entered. Staff would prepare the entries and he would check them before they were entered into the system so that we're able to, going forward at the end of this year, do that work on our own. This would cost an additional $10,000. We do have, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, that vacant deputy clerk treasurer position. Since that will be vacant here for at least a few months while we go through the process of review and hiring, that $10,000 would be available from the salary savings there.
Board, do we have a motion? Okay. Further discussion? Trustee Hudson.
How much per hour?
I believe it was $115 per hour.
Right, let him do his calculation. You might have a question.
Follow up.
Is that going to finish the job?
It will get us through this year, yes. Yeah, and I believe it will leave us with staff who then are able to do this next year. So yes.
Yes, it will finish the job.
Yes.
Thank you.
Trustee Jan Miller.
So just to be clear, there's there was an initial approval for $15,000 for the services. Was that for 1 through 4, or what did that include?
That was, and that was a little bit rougher estimate. It was for basically researching what was causing the discrepancies in some of the year-end reports that were coming out. He did research those, he came up with a series of items that needed to be corrected. A long spreadsheet that basically lays out the reconciliation that he completed. So that was the first $15,000. This next $10,000 would be to convert that from the spreadsheet into actual entries into the system. Those would be journal entries that get made. And then when when our auditor runs trial balances, then those numbers will tie out and reconcile.
Further discussion? Oh, I'm sorry.
Follow-up
Trustee Miller.
question. So when, I'm just clarifying, when these items come to GGF and they're approved, is there any dollar amount that doesn't need the board approval? Dollar amount?
Committees.
So in other words, the CLA was approved at $15,000.
So the village administrator's authority is up to $7,500.
Oh.
And then the committees can approve up to 15. Anything above 15 has to go to the full board.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that.
Further discussion?
And then
Trustee Miller.
will you be actually filling that deputy clerk's position this year?
That is the plan, yes, but it will take.
And using the 10,000 won't deter you from doing that?
No, it will take us some time we do want to take a look at the position and the qualifications, and we do that every time a position becomes vacant. It's a good time to review it and update job descriptions, that kind of thing. And then I think going through the process of hiring will take some time, and this savings will be available.
Further discussion?
Hopefully they'll, CLA will still be on staff or someone to train them, help to assist. I know Deanna can.
So this contract is with CLA. It's not just with a person that used to work for CLA?
Actually, the individual is retired. He was, if I remember correctly, at the city of Greenfield. Or Franklin, okay. He was an accountant with the city of Franklin and retired a year or so ago, and is doing this type of work on a part-time basis under CLA's umbrella.
Okay.
Is it okay if I say something? Is it?
Absolutely.
So this individual has been so helpful, and what he's brought forward, these are tools to help us go into the new financial system. So, and it is wonderful to have another set of eyes on everything right now. So while I realize there's some cost to this, I need the help. We need the help. So
Anna says it, it's done.
Further discussion?
For what it's worth, just hearing that it's the former Franklin finance director who is doing the assistance, I have experience with him. Paul is his name. He is fantastic. He knows this stuff. So I think you're in good hands with him.
Any further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Myers, Trustee Rick Miller.
Aye.
Trustee Baum.
Aye.
Trustee Hudson.
Aye.
Trustee Kaminsky. Trustee Jan Miller.
Aye.
Trustee Nybrider.
Aye.
Trustee Pieper.
Aye.
President Walter.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Next item under new business is item C, RFP for public engagement services for Richfield Utilities referendum.
At the June 6th meeting, the direction from the village board was for staff to prepare a draft RFP for public engagement related to the Richfield Utilities referendum plan for the November 8th election. It did draft this, looking at some other RFPs that other communities have put out. There was one in particular from Fort Atkinson. There was another from the, that I read about recently in the paper from I believe it's called the Five Lakes Fire District out in Waukesha County. The way that this is written, if this would, if the village board would like to continue to move forward with the process to hire a communication consultant to assist with the referendum, this would be distributed to, as we would search for public relations communication consultants. I can think of 3 or 4 that I know just from past experiences that I've had or have heard of from other communities. We'd try to find others. Any suggestions from the village board would be welcome. We would distribute it directly to them. We would also post it on the village website, try to highlight it through social media as much as possible to solicit as many proposals as possible. Those proposals would be due on July 14th with the plan of then bringing the proposals to the village board for consideration on July 18th. That's a fairly tight time frame, but if you as a board are interested or planning on bringing someone of a company to do this work, it probably is something that you'd want to be able to do by July so that they would have, August, September, October to actually prepare the communication and get the information out into the community. Did have a couple of suggestions on payment. One, how to pay for this. One, ARPA funds could be used, either the $40,000 that was earmarked by the village board for improving communications, or another $40,000 could, or however much this ends up being, probably between $30,000 and $60,000 could be redirected from other ARPA funds, or money could be used from the general fund balance to pay for this if the village board decides to proceed.
Trustee Kaminsky.
I think we've taken it this far and we should proceed with this. That's not saying we're accepting, anything. This is just part of the process, and I think the process should move on. And I think this is a very well done RFP. This is kind of my area of expertise where I work. And I might also suggest include PRSA, the Public Relations Society of America. They have I don't know if they have a Milwaukee chapter. I know they have a Chicago one, and they have ads for free and all that kind of thing. And a lot of people do access that. But I think it's very well done, frankly. And I think we should see what we get.
Trustee Myers.
Steve, some of the companies that you said that you know of, is one of them be the same that did this U-Boards referendum?
I'm not sure off the top of my head who did the school board referendum. And I haven't worked on a school district referendum. I believe, just from what I've read in the past, that it's kind of a niche of communication consultants that they tend to focus on school board referendums and focus in that area. But I honestly don't know who did the Germantown School District referendum.
So if I understand you right, you're talking about the kind of put themselves, all right, we'll take care of this U-Board stuff, and then we'll take care of the municipality as separate ones rather than.
I remember reading an article that some large number of Wisconsin school district referendums were all use the same communication firm.
Yeah, and the other thing that happens for reasons that us municipal practitioners cannot figure out is that notwithstanding the kind of general rule that we can't advocate for a position, we're putting out facts, information, that school boards for whatever reason don't seem to do that, and so the PR firms that assist them tend to take more of that advocacy approach, which is something that we definitely don't want to do here. So,
Thanks for explaining it, Brian.
I'll make a motion to approve the RFP for public engagement services for Richfield Utilities referendum.
Second.
To not exceed.
Well, it's just an RFP.
All right, so, but right now it's targeted at.
Yeah, there's no
40,000.
obligation to this, so.
Okay. Motion made and seconded. Discussion. Trustee Jan Miller.
I'm not familiar with how referendums in municipalities are handled. RFP sounds like a good idea. I don't agree in using ARPA funds for this, and I'd kind of like to put a cap on it because and take it out of the general fund,
General reserves.
general reserve.
I think that's
That's next time.
You don't want to do that now.
Yeah.
right, but that stating your stance now is not improper as part of discussion. Further discussion? No further discussion? Trustee Myers, you have a question?
I don't think the motion was in regard to a funding aspect, was just the aspect of just doing RFPs.
Yeah.
So
Right.
unless somebody wants to make a motion to amend that, would that be correct, Mr. President?
It would be, but we don't have anything to compare to in regards to what its value is.
Just trying to put it to bed.
Okay, further discussion? Yes, there is. Village attorney.
So the other piece is you don't necessarily want to put funding out now because then they shoot for that number. You know, they might be willing to do it for 20, but they say, well, if you're going to pay me 40, I'll take the 40. So, you know, it kind of cuts both ways. As the guy who responds to RFPs occasionally for outside council services, that is at least a consideration of how you bid. So.
Further discussion? Since there's no expense at this time, there's no reason for roll call vote. So all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? One opposed. Motion carries. Takes care of all items under new business and all items on tonight's agenda. Before we adjourn, the next village board meeting will be on Monday, July 18th at 7 p.m. here in the Village Hall Boardroom. Before that occurs, of course, there'll be our great 4th of July celebration. Please join us and enjoy yourself. And if you so desire, please volunteer and help out where you can. Thank you all for coming tonight. Thank you all for watching, and have a good night. Need a H steak. Yes.